Okay, we have the beautiful rain sound. So hello, Victoria May.
Hello.
Welcome to Sanctuary. How are you doing on this very wet 24th of December 2025?
I am very happy not to be working.
Yes?
And I am enjoying just being at home in my own little sanctuary. Working on some artwork and just being cozy, cooking,
Yeah.
creating foods for Christmas, me and my dad.
Yes. I'm glad to hear you're cozy. I know you've lost your dad fairly recently. You're moving into another part of the holiday season in a different way. But you have a lot of very exciting things coming up. Maybe we should start, go backwards a little bit and just have you tell us. This video is going to live on the 18th Street website unless we get your disapproval on the show page. So it could be seen by anyone and everyone. It'll be on YouTube first, and then it'll be part of a playlist on there. So perhaps you can tell us a bit about, that's why I'm saying us. It's not the royal we, it's because it could be anybody viewing. A little bit about your work to date. You come from Torrance. You basically come from the LA area, which is where you were raised. But then you spent many, many years in the Santa Cruz area, in the Bay Area. So you have a real footprint in San Francisco and that area. And then came, I believe, returned to LA, I believe before the pandemic or during the pandemic. So maybe you can take us through a little bit of the chronology of your work, and then we can get into the exciting things coming up for you in 2026. It's a wide berth, so jump in wherever you'd like.
What was that?
It's a very, the question is a very wide, complex question.
Yes, I lived in Santa Cruz for 30 years, which was a sanctuary from LA,
Yeah.
for me, to be honest. And I did move back here during the pandemic because some amazing opportunities aligned because of the pandemic, actually working remotely, and I wanted to be close to my parents again towards the end of their lives, and so I just jumped at it. And yeah, I went to grad school in the San Jose State in the Bay Area, and wow, yeah, body of work. Just to put it very generally, I work with materials to create metaphors about the struggles, in society, the struggles inside ourselves, and I like to use found objects and material, excess materials to mirror back what's going on in society. Right now, when I go back home, I'm going to work with some vinyl that is from AU's Billboard, and so that's the kind of thing that I like to work with. I'm very conscious of materials and how they're used and wasted, and especially moving back to LA, I am really struck by what I call the grit and the glamour here.
Right.
You have Hollywood and the sort of excesses of that, and just a very image-based or appearance-based culture, and then at the same time, there's also so much need and sort of devastating poverty at the same time. And so just my work grapples with that sort of contrast.
And I read too that you got your your Bachelor of Fine Arts, I believe, in design, and then your Master's in photography and installation. What is it to get a Master's in installation? You are incredibly skilled in so many areas. Graphics, you do that as kind of a business also. You're amazing at installing and figuring out solutions to things. You actually helped me install this piece when it didn't have the roof a couple of years ago. And I used some of your techniques when I was doing the ropes, the hanging cords. But I have not heard of a master's in installation. Can you share anything about that?
I think,
Did you create that master's, or was it something that was offered by UC Santa Cruz? Did you kind of build your own?
I don't think that it's, perhaps you were looking at my resume, and I think I just put, emphasis on photography and installation because that was where my emphasis was.
Right.
I don't think that the MFA says anything itself about,
Right.
you know.
Sometimes people, get an MFA in painting or printmaking or what have you. So,
True.
right.
If anything, it would have been very photography based because that was how I started. But I taught classes in photography for many, many years, but it just, the process wasn't as fun because I like to work with my hands
Right.
and work with materials.
But you're able to photograph your own work professionally then. Is that
No,
correct?
I hire somebody.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't have all the equipment.
Right. It's a lot of skills. You are incredibly skilled. You use a mean sewing machine, sewing machine queen, and just numerous other things that you've either been trained in or seen from your family, mastered in various ways. What about these exciting things you have coming up for 2026? You have a residency at the Blue Roof Studios. I know that's one thing, and then a couple of shows that sound very exciting.
Yeah, and right now I'm preparing the pieces that I spoke of will be at Linda King's studio, opening January 10th. And yeah, that will be a really nice show with Kay Whitney and Steve DeBoot. A little group show called Intersections Unknown. And what else? And then I think there's a show coming up at Angels Gate that I don't know much about, maybe in March. And then, yes, indeed, I have a residency at Blue Roof Studios in the fall.
That's going to be exciting. That's an amazing place. And I was talking with Adrienne Devine yesterday. She's one of the early residencies there. And you want to say something about Blue Roof, maybe give them a plug in terms of what they offer the community and artists?
I'm super excited to go there, and it seems like an amazing space. And it seems like a very sweet community of artists. And the other thing that they're doing is they're also offering residencies to people who were impacted by the fires, which I think is really wonderful.
Yeah.
And and it's nice to know that I'm hearing of different people who have been associated with that, and I didn't know that Adrienne had a residency there. So it feels like a really nice, touchstone, I guess, in the community. To have been invited to be a part of.
Is it only visiting artists, or do they have a group of core artists that have day studios there
Yeah, they rent.
don't come in and out?
They rent space also. Like Carrie Burkle was there for a long time, but I believe she is moving out now. She's found something else.
Are you going to do a culminating show at the end of the residency?
Yes, that's part of it.
It's going to be exciting. You've also been involved with the POCO initiative. Do you want to tell us something about that? You've been in a couple of shows with them. At least one 3-person show that I saw that looked really beautiful.
Yes,
And I think you are with another one, in another one also.
Yeah, thank you for coming to our talk. Yes, there was a show with Epoco Art Collective just in the last few months.
They're a traveling venue, is it, or a traveling initiative?
Yeah, it's the curator is Anne Shee, and she's kind of nomadic in her, that was in her own
Right.
apartment, but she's put together shows for different venues where that she's invited to use. There was one in the summertime at Chuck Armali's studio, and then she had another one in Houston at Okusendu. Also like a domestic space that has been turned into a gallery.
It's interesting, like the potential tension between being a nomadic venture and working in domestic spaces where we think of, maybe inaccurately, we think of them, as stable. So that's really interesting. You've used the word sanctuary a little bit as we're sort of winding down. Can you share a little bit about what it's like to be in this space? You've just asked me what I was thinking about when I worked on the walls. I didn't really know how to tell you that I try not to think when I work. But maybe you can just share with me your experience. I've even had someone say that they sort of felt like the walls were coming in on them, but yet it wasn't a negative. And I'm curious about. Sometimes it's hard to be, to be really tuned into our environment because we're thinking very much about. I've asked you to interview and to speak, so some people that's really fluid. Some people it takes, going very much inward to speak. So. And you become like less aware of your environment. But I'm interested in your response to being in there, or anything else you might want to say.
No, it feels very cozy. And what's interesting is that, even when I first saw this, I feel like I can apprehend the space in a couple of ways. On one level, it feels very aerial. It feels like an aerial, when you're in the airplane and you get to see either, human-made patterns or,
Right.
natural patterns in the earth. And that's mostly how I feel. But then the scale, complicates that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I think about how many of those kinds of patterns, maybe they actually are called fractals, but they also exist on another kind of cellular level sometimes. So I can also think of it as, maybe these are veins and arteries, or I don't know. And then there's something about all of that kind of enveloping one, and that these are fundamental sorts of patterns and textures that that we'll always find, regardless of tumult or what have you. Obviously we want not to have tumult and uncertainty.
Right.
Sometimes I find that the earth itself, like just the actual planet, like the rock,
Right.
the layers are a kind of sanctuary because they're unlikely to change very dramatically.
Right.
Of course, there's earthquakes and
We're in trouble if they do. But
and those kinds of things. But that's its own thing. That's its own dynamic. And
right.
On some level, we just don't matter. And so I think I like being reminded that I'm just a little speck sometimes, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so
also,
those are some of the things that come up for me. I could go on, of course, but
You're very articulate, and that's another skill that you have. You write as well because you produce brochures and other things. So anybody listening to this, Victoria May, full-service creative agency, trained photographer, very skilled in installation, writing, editing, but primarily, underneath it all, a maker to express things that are on your mind, but perhaps even more importantly, in your heart. So I want to wish you a wonderful holiday and thank you for being here. And Victoria, may you know safe space.